In the early years of World War II, before the desert sands turned against him, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel carved his name into military history with a series of brilliant victories across North Africa. Known as the Desert Fox, he became a legend, feared by his enemies, admired by his soldiers, and respected even by the Allies. The story begins in early 1941. Italy's invasion of Egypt had collapsed, and British forces pushed deep into Libya, capturing thousands of Italian troops. Hitler feared that Italy, his main partner in the Mediterranean, might collapse entirely. To prevent disaster, he sent a small German force to North Africa, the Afrika Korps, commanded by a rising star, General Erwin Rommel. Rommel arrived in Tripoli in February 1941. He immediately inspected the front lines, driving straight to the battlefield rather than staying at headquarters. What he saw was alarming. Italian morale was low, equipment was outdated, and the British were preparing new offensives. But Rommel saw opportunity where others saw defeat. With characteristic boldness, he launched attacks before his full army even arrived. In March and April 1941, Rommel struck British forces with lightning speed. His tanks raced across the desert in wide flanking maneuvers, confusing Allied commanders. He captured El Hegela, Mersa Brega, and then pushed even farther east. British intelligence underestimated him. They believed the Germans were simply reinforcing the Italians. They did not expect a rapid counteroffensive. But Rommel was already in motion. In April 1941, the Afrika Korps swept across Cyrenaica. British forces began to withdraw, but Rommel pressed harder. In an astonishing advance, he recaptured Benghazi, Derna, and Machili. His troops drove so fast that British officers complained, "He does not fight like anyone else." One of Rommel's greatest achievements came at Machili, where he captured a British general and hundreds of soldiers. Shortly after, he pushed all the way to the Egyptian border. Only the besieged port city of Tobruk remained unconquered. Tobruk became Rommel's obsession. He believed that capturing it would open the way to Egypt, the Suez Canal, and possibly the Middle East. For 8 months, he surrounded the fortress, launching repeated assaults. The defenders, Australians, British, Polish, and Indians, held firm. Rommel's assaults were bold, but the defenses were stronger than expected. Still, even without Tobruk, Rommel dominated the desert. British General Wavell and later General Auchinleck struggled to anticipate his tactics. Rommel used deception, rapid movement, and surprise as his main weapons. He struck at night, swept through unguarded areas, and appeared where no one expected him. In early 1942, Rommel prepared his next major offensive. Reinforced with new tanks, he launched Operation Theseus in May 1942. The battle that followed, Gazala, was one of his most brilliant campaigns. Rommel executed a wide flanking maneuver known as the right hook, sending his forces around the British minefields. The British counterattacked, but Rommel coordinated his tanks and anti-tank guns with masterful precision. By June 1942, he had achieved a crushing victory. Tobruk, defended for nearly a year, finally fell to Rommel's forces. The news shocked Britain. Winston Churchill later wrote, "The fall of Tobruk was the greatest blow to British prestige in the war." For this victory, Hitler promoted Rommel to Field Marshal, the youngest in Germany at the time. Buoyed by success, Rommel pushed into Egypt. His next objective, El Alamein, a narrow bottleneck between the desert and the sea. If Rommel broke through, Cairo might fall, the Suez Canal can be lost, the Middle East oil fields might be within reach. By July 1942, he stood at the gates of El Alamein. Rommel's early African campaign represented the peak of his brilliance. He had defeated superior numbers, improvised masterful maneuvers, and created a legend around himself. But his success carried seeds of trouble. His supply lines were overstretched, his troops exhausted, and Allied forces were gathering strength. The tide would soon turn. But that was later. In the period from 1941 to mid-1942, Rommel was the master of desert warfare. To friend and foe alike, he was the Desert Fox, a commander whose speed, daring, and imagination reshaped the North African front and became one of the most iconic chapters of the Second World War.